Former Toronto Raptor Jakob has been made available by the San Antonio Spurs, so I'm going to break down the possibility of Toronto trading for Big Yak if the Kevin Durant stuff doesn't end up going down. We do have a Kevin Durant update as well, including some rumors and rumblings going around the league and the updated betting odds from DraftKings that everyone has been looking at over the past week. We also finally got the details of the DJ Wilson contract, so we know how long he'll be brought in on the team for, and lots of other Toronto Raptors news. So without further ado, let's dive straight into it. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, breaking down the latest Toronto Raptors news. And as everyone knows, the Toronto Raptors are on that quest for Kevin Durant. They're on the quest for KD, but that doesn't stop other Raptors news from going down, even though we do have a Kevin Durant update in this video. But with Summer League, a few signings going down, right, the Raptors continue to be an interesting team to follow this offseason. And the first thing we're talking about is a former Toronto Raptor being made available, and a lot of Raptors fans have their eyes peeled at this one, as Jakob is now on the market for the San Antonio Spurs. Now, this is coming from Bleacher Report. They were doing an article regarding the Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook deal and how the Spurs could potentially acquire one of those big contracts and obviously get draft capital for it. But teams apparently consider Jakob alongside Doug McDermott and I missed that other name. Let me get that full name out there. I'm not going to be messing up these reports out here. But Jakob Doug McDermott, and Josh Richardson, not Jason Richardson. That's the name I always mix up, to be available. Now, this is something that was speculated at this year's trade deadline, and it was widely reported that the Toronto Raptors wanted to come in and take away Jakob from the San Antonio Spurs. The Raptors were amongst many teams that were trying to do this, including the Charlotte Hornets. I believe the Pacers were rumored to be in some deals as well, right? The Jakob was a hot commodity at this year's trade deadline. However, the Spurs, they had a high asking price for their up-and-coming center, and the Raptors could not end up poaching him away from San Antonio. But now, it seems like the asking price has become a lot more reasonable, given the fact the Spurs are in that rebuilding mode. They're not trying to acquire a bunch of assets. They gave away DeJounte Murray, right? They're starting a proper rebuild, which they didn't really do following the Kawhi Leonard trade. So Jakob is widely looked at as being available. And this guy would come in, obviously, as a former Toronto Raptor, one of Pascal Siakam's best friends, right? Bringing him into this team, I think, would be a huge plus. Even though we just drafted Koloko, even though I think Precious Achiuwa is certainly a starting caliber center in the modern NBA, but Jakob is 7'1", right? So he brings the height. He's certainly going to be more polished than a Koloko, who I'd say is going to be a year or so from being a really reliable big man, right? The big men always take a year or two to just come into the league and develop. We even saw it with Precious in Miami. Pascal took a year, even though he's not even that much of a big man, right? Big men take a while to come into the league. So bringing in Jakob right now at 7'1", upped his scoring last season to 14 points per game, 9 rebounds. So really efficient around the rim, right? 61% from the field, and shot 1,000% from the three-point line last season. Probably only took one, but can't deny the numbers. But bringing in Big Yak would be a huge plus for this team, because we do, as the Otto Porter Jr. put it, I broke it down in the last video, we have finals aspirations this season, right? We were a top 5 seed last year. We still have our veterans, our championship core, or not core, but core players on that championship team, and Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam. OG Anunoby, right, is more of a veteran at this point in his career. Mixing that with Scotty Barnes, Gary Trent Jr., the young guys, right, that will be huge. I'm assuming this deal would only go down if Kevin Durant isn't traded to our team, because the assets that we'd like to have to give up in a Jakob trade would likely be going to the Brooklyn Nets if we end up making that trade for KD. But I'm thinking maybe a first and then some salary filler would be able to do it for the Raptors side in terms of making a deal with the San Antonio Spurs, because the Spurs just want those picks, and Jakob has 1 year left on his contract, and it's not that high of a salary. He's on one of the best contracts in the NBA, making only $9 million next year. 14 points per game for a center, one of the best positional defenders in the NBA, right? Bringing him in to be a core piece to our defense, be able to match up with those 7-foot centers, give Koloko sort of a year to really develop and work on his game and all that sort of stuff, right? I think that would be a nice piece if we don't have to give up that many assets. Am I giving up any of our core players like OG, Gary, Fred, Siakam, Scotty for Jakob even Precious? Not a chance. Not going to happen, especially on a 1 year deal. However, if we can throw in a pick and then maybe some salary filler, I think that would be a nice pickup for the Toronto Raptors. But let me know your Jakob Poeltl packages down in the comment section below. But the big trade that everyone wants to talk about, everyone's been looking at, is Kevin Durant. And we have an odds update. We have Zach Lowe making a bunch of comments. He did a podcast with Blake Murphy that I heard today, breaking down the whole KD situation. But currently, we'll dive into the odds just first because the odds are the big thing everyone's looking at. The Toronto Raptors have dipped slightly. They've moved down in the odds in terms of our probability. We're at a plus 400 right now, but the Suns continue to drop, right? They went from, or they've maintained their drop, right? They were in the minus for a while, and now they're plus 110. Makes them roughly around 30-ish%. Raptors are about a 20% to land Durant right now in terms of overall probability. I've seen the Celtics rise up in the odds rankings as well, so maybe there's rumblings there on that front. But Raptors still amongst the top three, and the Phoenix Suns, they're not the... Even though they are the favorite, they're not the overwhelming favorite at this point right now. So I think the odds are still encouraging for people rooting for Kevin Durant coming to Toronto. There's no stress on that front. And Zach Lowe did a podcast on the Low Post. Obviously, he's a league insider with Blake Murphy. And he's sort of I've touched on his comments saying that he would applaud Masai Ujiri for getting a deal done without Scotty Barnes, right? He'd be essentially saying that if he thinks Kevin Durant's going to Toronto, Scotty Barnes we have to be in a deal, or else Masai Ujiri is finessing. But he sort of walked that back a little bit after there was discussions about available packages and all that sort of stuff. And it seems like a Gary OG Anunoby package is something that's going to be able to beat out a lot of the other offers that are out there on the table, given there's no real bidding war. The Suns, the longer this draws out for the Phoenix Suns, right, the more likely Ayton gets signed by the Indiana Pacers. So they're losing their assets there, but I'd rather have a Gary and OG than Ayton and Bridges. Maybe that's a hot take. Maybe that's a wild rumor, or wild opinion, but I don't know. That's just me. But the odds stay sort of level at this point, even though if they've dropped minimally for the Toronto Raptors. So we'll see what ends up happening. Woj dropped a little Woj bomb yesterday as well, saying that it's likely during the Las Vegas Summer League, all the executives are going to be down there. They'll probably rent out a boardroom in one of the hotels they're staying at, do a bit of gambling, and then maybe the Brooklyn Nets take a gamble on a minor trade from some lower valuable pieces for the Toronto Raptors, gamble them for Kevin Durant. We'll see what ends up occurring, but that's the Kevin Durant update for today. The next one we're diving into is Wilson's contract has been revealed. Now, we reported a couple days ago that DJ Wilson was being brought back with the organization. We weren't really sure what that deal sort of entailed, but we do know now. We know this one now, so I'll break it down on here. It's come from Mike Scotto saying the Toronto Raptors have signed DJ Wilson to a 2-year veteran minimum deal, which includes a $250,000 guaranteed. Now, I really like this contract for the Toronto Raptors. I love it because, one, if it's nothing super guaranteed just yet. The Raptors hold all of the control in terms of what they want to do with DJ Wilson at this point, right? We decide what's going to happen with his future now that he signed this contract. But if we have a couple guys just absolutely go nuclear in Summer League and we want to give them roster spots, it's only guaranteed $250,000 for DJ Wilson, even though I think he's going to be one of the better players on our Summer League team. But there are some roster fighting positions, especially for a guy that I'm going to talk about at the end or in the next segment of this video. But you're still maintaining that flexibility. We still don't know what's going to happen on the trade market. We don't know what this roster is going to look like in 3-4 months. So Masai Ujiri's maintained that flexibility. However, if DJ Wilson's looking like the player he was pre-injury in those short stints with the Toronto Raptors, having him on the roster locked in for 2 years on the veteran minimum, that is a steal. That is a steal for the Toronto Raptors. So shout out DJ Wilson, obviously getting the $250,000 guaranteed, but I think this is a massive smart play. Right? You're not rushing into anything with DJ Wilson, right? You're keeping your options open for the offseason, but you're letting them know we want you on this organization. We want you locked in here. And Masai Ujiri out here making W's, because I've seen a few people trash the DJ Wilson signing, especially where he's 26, right? He's not that much of a young guy, but he is mobile. He is a solid shooter, right? He played switchable defense for a 6'11 guy in his tenure with the Raptors last season. He's a guy I think complements the rest of our roster perfectly. So shout out to DJ Wilson, massive W for the Toronto Raptors. But I alluded to this in the in the last segment, but there's a Toronto Raptors guard that's looking big, looking like he completely different than he was last season. Now, this guy may have had a more forgettable Raptors season last year due to a myriad of injuries and just bad luck, and didn't have the greatest tenure in the G League last year with the 905. But David Johnson, obviously the Raptors' second round pick, I was very excited about after we drafted him in the second round last season. Bobby Webster said that he was a lottery prospect there for a while before he went down in health and safety protocols in college ball. So there were some high expectations, even more so than your average second round pick for David Johnson last season. We predicted that he might have been able to crack the rotation more as a two guard, whereas it was our undrafted free agent Justin Champagnie that really took that reins and became a rotation player. Like half of last season. So that's what's happening. I got the Champagnie Poppy animations playing on repeat. But David Johnson, looking at this man right now, turning some heads, folks. This guy is currently turning some heads. Look at this guy right here. David Johnson's looking yoked right now. He said in a Summer League interview, essentially, that given all the injuries he dealt with last season, right, the nagging injuries, that sort of went overlooked because he wasn't really in the Raptors rotation anyways, right? Given all the injuries, he just focused on his body. He focused on becoming more of an athlete, building up some strength, getting that NBA body going. And this man's looking like an athlete right now. Like I'm gonna replay this one. I'm gonna replay this image here now. Those are some Andre Iguodala looking arms. Maybe it's just the angle. Obviously, these close-ups, they're tough to tell. We've embayed it before with some muscle gain over the off seasons, right? But I don't know. David Johnson, if he can get that athletic ability going, right, the high rising, play some defense. Came in known as a shooter, right? If he can sort of put all that stuff together, he's another guy that's going to be fighting for a roster spot this season. So shout out David Johnson. Love the work you've been putting in. Love to see it. And the final one, a little heartwarming story. Aron Baynes is recovering, or essentially is recovered from his injury. Obviously, last season during FIBA qualifiers, I believe he slipped in a bathroom. I'm pretty sure that was the story, but he ended up getting paralyzed with a neck injury, right? So he's paralyzed there for a while, and apparently Aron Baynes is back currently this weekend, right? As Summer League starts up, he's going to start working out for some NBA teams, and obviously, Baynes became known as the Tank Commander. He was memed on a lot for the Toronto Raptors season, right? That entire team was memed on a lot. There was the only way content was coming out from any sort, whether it was TSN, Sportsnet, or us, right? Everyone was sort of memeing on Aron Baynes, but obviously that injury was extremely unfortunate. He was a true professional. He was a good guy when he was here with the Raptors squad, but I'm just really happy to see him come back a bit healthy, right? Or hopefully healthy. We haven't seen him play or anything, but the fact that he's healthy enough to be playing basketball, he's walking, he's doing everything well, right? That's a huge positive. So shout out to Aron Baynes, getting healthy. Hope he makes a roster spot. Obviously, things didn't work out here in Toronto, but he was a good guy. And him as a starting center just wasn't going to work out for us, especially at this stage in his career, right? He's not pegged as that. But as a backup center, with a role that's not to replace a Marc Gasol or Serge Ibaka, two championship caliber centers, right? A role that's not that, I think he can thrive in that sort of position, as we saw him do with the Phoenix Suns a couple of seasons ago, right? I think he can thrive with that ability in this potentially this season if he's back healthy. So hopefully it happens. But let me know what you guys think on all this Toronto Raptors news. You guys are the best for making this far. Check out the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter, all that cool stuff. Anyways, enough of me rambling. I'm signing off. Cheers.